You think you think you know what happens when you put the do not disturb sign on your hotel room door. You think you're getting a little privacy. Maybe you think you're doing the planet a favor because of that little green card on the nightstand that talks about saving water and reducing chemicals. You might even think you're being a good guest by not making someone clean up after you every single day. But I've spent the last 3 months digging into the operational realities of the Las Vegas Strip, analyzing union contracts, reading through thousands of pages of injury reports, and talking to the people who actually hold the keys to those rooms. And I can tell you that what that sign actually does is trigger a corporate algorithm designed to strip mine the health of the American worker while padding the EBITDA of multi billion dollar conglomerates. There is a war happening in the hallways of the Venetian, the Bellagio, Caesar's Palace, and the Wynn. It is a war over square footage, time motion studies, and the definition of a clean room. When you look at the financials, you realize that the housekeeping department isn't just a service center anymore. It has been weaponized into a profit center. In 2023, while room rates hit all time highs and resort fees climbed to $50 a night, the actual labor hours per occupied room in Las Vegas plummeted. That isn't efficiency. That is a systematic strategy to eliminate the middle class hospitality job and replace it with a gig economy style grinder that breaks bodies and burns out staff faster than they can be hired. I found internal documents that suggest the green choice programs have almost nothing to do with the environment. I found injury rates among housekeepers that rival heavy construction and coal mining. And I found a loophole in the post pandemic recovery plan that casinos are using to permanentize emergency cuts. The reality of your hotel stay is ugly, it's dirty, and it is entirely calculated. To understand why your room isn't as clean as it used to be and why the person cleaning it is in pain, we have to look past the glitz of the lobby. We have to look at the cart. Part one, the official story. If you walk into any MGM, Caesars, or major independent property on the strip today, you will see the narrative everywhere. It's on the TV when you turn it on. It's on the placard by the sink. It's in the email they send you before you check in. They call it Project Planet, or Green Choice, or Conserve. The pitch is seductive in its simplicity. Decline housekeeping services for your stay and help us save millions of gallons of water and reduce chemical waste. In exchange, they'll often sweeten the deal. Maybe it's a $10 food and beverage credit. Maybe it's loyalty points. Maybe it's just the moral superiority of being an eco friendly traveler. Publicly, the corporations frame this as a sustainability initiative. In their corporate social responsibility reports, which I've read, they tout the reduction in laundry cycles and water usage as key metrics for their ESG scores. Investors love ESG scores. It makes the company look responsible, forward thinking, and modern. During the pandemic, this narrative shifted slightly. Suddenly, eliminating daily housekeeping wasn't just about the planet, it was about safety. It was about contactless experiences. They told us that to keep guests and staff safe, no one should enter your room while you were occupying it. It made sense in 2020. We were all scared. We all wanted distance. But here is the first crack in the facade. The pandemic ended. The restrictions were lifted. The buffets reopened. The nightclubs packed people in shoulder to shoulder. And the casino floors were once again filled with smoke and crowds. Every single safety protocol that restricted revenue, like spacing out slot machines or limiting table capacity, was removed immediately, except one. The opt out housekeeping model remained. In fact, it became the default. At many properties, if you want your room cleaned, you now have to specifically request it 24 hours in advance. They kept the one protocol that reduced their labor force and they dropped everything else. Ask yourself this. If a casino is truly concerned about environmental sustainability, why do they run air conditioning with the doors open? Why do they operate fountains in the middle of a desert? Why do they build massive energy intensive spheres that can be seen from space? The idea that MGM or Caesars is genuinely worried about the water used to wash your pillowcases while simultaneously operating the Bellagio fountains is a contradiction so large it's almost insulting. The official story is that this is what the customer wants. They say you want privacy. They say you want to be green. But when you look at the complaints, the reviews, and the reality of the guest experience, that story falls apart. This isn't about saving the planet, it never was. Part two, following the money. Let's put aside the PR statements and look at the ledger, because in Las Vegas, the house never loses, and they certainly don't give away food and beverage credits out of the goodness of their hearts. I crunched the numbers on what it actually costs to clean a standard hotel room on the Las Vegas Strip. You have the labor cost, which for a union housekeeper, including benefits, is significant. You have the cost of chemicals, electricity, water, and the massive industrial cost of laundering linens. Conservative industry estimates put the operational cost of a full turn service, that's cleaning a room between guests, at roughly $30 to $45 depending on the property's star rating. A stayover clean, a light dusting and bed making while the guest is still there, costs significantly less, maybe $10 to $15 in labor and resources. Now consider the scale. A property like the MGM Grand has nearly 7,000 rooms. If they can convince just 30% of those guests to skip housekeeping using a green choice program, they aren't just saving pennies. Let's do the math. If 2,000 rooms skip a daily service that costs the hotel $15 to perform, that is $30,000 in savings per day. That's nearly $11 million a year. And that is just one hotel. When you multiply that across a portfolio of 10 or 12 properties, you're looking at over $100 million in pure, unadulterated EBITDA added directly to the bottom line simply by not cleaning rooms. But here is where the scheme gets truly brilliant. And by brilliant, I mean predatory. While they were eliminating these services, what happened to the resort fee? The resort fee was invented exclusively to cover amenities. Originally, it was justified as covering the pool, the gym, the Wi-Fi, and the daily service of the hotel. It was the cost of the resort experience. Since 2019, resort fees on the Strip have increased by an average of 30 to 40%. You are now paying upwards of $50 a night plus tax for a resort fee. So let's recap. You are paying a mandatory fee for services. The hotel then offers you a $10 credit to decline those services. The credit is less than the cost of the labor they are saving. And because the credit is usually for food and beverage, it brings you back into their ecosystem where the markup on a cocktail is 80%, meaning that $10 credit actually only costs them about $2 in real goods. They charge you $50 for a service. They pay you $2 to not use it. They pocket the difference. It is a financial arbitrage of the guest experience. They have successfully decoupled the price of the room from the service of the room. And this financial windfall is the primary driver for every policy decision regarding housekeeping in the last 5 years. But to really understand the damage, we have to stop looking at the balance sheet and start looking at the schedule. Part 3, the internal strategy. This is the part that the casinos really don't want you to understand. This is the mechanism that turns a green initiative into a labor crisis. It's all about the board. In the housekeeping world, the board is the list of rooms a guest room attendant, or GRA, is assigned to clean in an 8-hour shift. For decades, there was a standard formula. A housekeeper had a quota. Let's say, for the sake of this investigation, that quota is 15 credits. A standard room is 1 credit. A suite might be 2. In the old days, before Green Choice, a housekeeper's board was a mix. You would have checkouts, people leaving, which requires a deep clean. You strip the whole bed, scrub the tub, vacuum everything. It's heavy work. And you would have stayovers, people staying another night. For a stayover, you make the bed, swap the towels, empty the trash. It's lighter. It's faster. The mix is crucial. The physical labor of a checkout is intense. The stayover provides a physical recovery period during the shift. It allows the body to rest while still working. A balanced board might be 10 stayovers and 5 checkouts. That is a manageable day. Now, look at the internal strategy today. When the hotel incentivizes guests to skip the stayover clean, those light rooms disappear from the board. They are gone. But the quota remains the same. So now, when a housekeeper comes to work, her board doesn't have 10 light cleans and 5 heavy cleans. It has 13 or 14 heavy cleans. It is nothing but checkouts. I spoke to a former housekeeping manager at a Caesars property who left the industry last year. They agreed to speak on background, and they explained it like this. We used to use stayovers to balance the load. If I had a pregnant housekeeper or an older lady who was struggling, I could give her a floor with more stayovers to help her make quota. Now, there are no stayovers. It's a slaughterhouse. It's 100% heavy lifting, 8 hours a day, every day. But it gets worse. Because when a guest skips cleaning for 3 days, that room isn't just a normal checkout, it is a disaster zone. Trash piles up, stains set in. The bathroom requires double the scrubbing. Housekeepers call these trash outs. So the strategy is twofold. First, eliminate the light work to save money. Second, force the remaining staff to clean only the heaviest, dirtiest rooms, but hold them to the same time constraints as before. The software they use, systems like HotSOS and others, are designed to optimize this. They treat the housekeeper like a machine. The algorithm doesn't know that room 304 had a bachelor party in it. It just knows it needs to be turned in 30 minutes. This is the speed up. It is a classic factory floor tactic from the 1920s, applied to the hospitality industry of the 2020s. They have increased the density of the work while stagnating the time allowed to do it. And this internal strategy is directly responsible for what I found next, the human wreckage. Part 4, the human cost. We need to talk about what it actually takes to clean a Vegas hotel room. We aren't talking about tidying up your bedroom at home. We are talking about industrial athleticism. Luxury hotel mattresses today are incredibly thick. They are heavy. Some of the pillow top mattresses at the Wynn or the Cosmopolitan weigh over 100 pounds. To make a bed to 5-star standards, a housekeeper has to lift that mattress corner with one hand and tuck with the other. They do this 4 times per bed, 2 beds per room, 14 rooms a day. That is over 100 heavy lifts per shift, usually done with the back bent at an awkward angle. Then there is the scrubbing, glass showers, soaking tubs, floor-to-ceiling mirrors. It is repetitive, high-impact motion. I looked at injury data. According to reports cited by the Culinary Union, housekeepers have a higher injury rate than workers in the service sector generally, and in some years, their repetitive strain injury rates rival heavy manufacturing. We are talking about torn rotator cuffs, herniated discs, and chronic carpal tunnel. One housekeeper I spoke with, let's call her Maria, told me she takes 800 milligrams of ibuprofen before her shift starts and another 800 at lunch just to get through the day. She is 42 years old, but she walks like she is 70. She told me when the guests skip service, they think they are helping, but when they finally leave, the room is so dirty I have to run to finish it. If I don't finish my board, I get written up. If I get written up 3 times, I lose my job. So I don't take my break. I don't go to the bathroom. I just run. This is the invisible athlete of Las Vegas. They are burning calories at the rate of a marathon runner, but they are treated as unskilled labor. And there is another cost, the psychological stress of the on-call life. Because the casinos have optimized their labor algorithms so tightly, they don't want to pay for a single hour of labor that isn't 100% necessary. If occupancy drops by 5% on a Tuesday, they cancel shifts. Housekeepers often have to call in 2 hours before their shift to see if they are working. Imagine trying to budget for rent or childcare when you don't know if you will work 40 hours this week or 24. This precarious scheduling keeps the workforce in a state of constant anxiety. They cannot complain about the workload because they are afraid of being moved to the bottom of the scheduling list. And ultimately, this cost bleeds over to you, the tourist. If you have read TripAdvisor or Reddit lately, you've seen the complaints. Dust on the headboard, hair in the bathroom, trash left under the bed. This isn't because the housekeepers are lazy, it is because they are impossible tasks. If you give a worker 25 minutes to do a job that requires 45, they have to cut corners. They have to. It is physically impossible otherwise. They might wipe the counter, but skip the disinfection. They might smooth the sheets rather than changing them if they look clean enough. The green choice strategy has created a hygiene crisis in Las Vegas hotels. You are paying premium rates for a room that is being cleaned by a person who is exhausted, in pain, and rushing against a clock that is set to fail. Part 5, the cover up. So, why haven't you heard about this on the evening news? Why isn't this front page stuff? It comes down to power, influence, and a very careful control of the narrative. First, you have the media environment. The Las Vegas Review Journal, the main paper in town, is owned by the Adelson family, the founders of Las Vegas Sands. The local television stations are heavily dependent on casino advertising revenue. You will rarely see a deep dive investigation into the labor practices of the companies that pay the bills for the entire city. But the real battleground is the union. The Culinary Union Local 226 is one of the strongest unions in the country. They know exactly what is happening. During the last contract negotiations, daily room cleaning was the number one fighting point. The union fought to mandate daily room cleaning in the contract. They argued it was a safety issue, both for the health of the worker and the safety of the guest. Remember, the Las Vegas shooter had "Do Not Disturb" on his door for days, allowing him to stockpile weapons. The casinos fought back hard. They cited guest preference. They cited environmental impact. They spent millions on PR firms to paint the daily cleaning requirement as an outdated relic. In the end, it was a compromise, but the casinos largely won the operational war. While some contracts now require daily cleaning checks, the opt-out culture is so ingrained and the incentives so pushed by the front desk that the reduction in labor has held. They also use NDA-style tactics. Workers who speak out about the quotas are often labeled troublemakers. I tried to get MGM and Caesars to comment on their specific rooms per day quotas for this video. They declined, stating that such information is proprietary operational data. They treat the number of rooms a woman has to clean in 8 hours as a trade secret, on par with the algorithm of a slot machine. That tells you everything you need to know. They know the numbers are indefensible in the court of public opinion, so they hide them behind the wall of corporate strategy. And this is the part they really don't want you to know. They know the injury rates. They have the internal risk management reports. They have calculated the cost of workers' comp claims against the savings from cutting staff, and they have decided that paying for the injuries is cheaper than paying for a humane workload. Part 6, what happens next? Where does this go from here? If you think the service cuts are over, you are mistaken. We are standing at the edge of the Uberification of the hotel industry. The long-term goal for these corporations is to convert housekeeping from a fixed cost with benefits, pensions, and consistent hours into a variable cost. We are already seeing the rise of third-party contract cleaning agencies in non-union hotels. These are gig workers, brought in on demand, paid per room, with zero benefits and zero recourse if they get hurt. The major casinos are watching this model closely. I predict that within the next 5 years, we will see the formal unbundling of the hotel room. Just like the airlines did with baggage. First, checking a bag was free. Then they started charging for it. Now it is a massive revenue stream. Expect to see base room rates that strictly cover the bed and the key. You want fresh towels? That's a fee. You want the room cleaned on day 3? That's a service add-on. They will frame it as pay for what you use, giving you control over your stay. But in reality, it will be the final step in transferring the entire cost of labor onto the customer, while the corporation collects the rent on the real estate. We are also seeing the early stages of automation. Robot vacuums for hallways are already being tested. As the technology improves, they will use it to justify cutting the housekeeping staff even further. The robot does the floors, they will say, so the maid can do more rooms. The workload will not go down. The quota will simply go up. Conclusion. This investigation started with a simple green placard on a nightstand, but it revealed a complex, ruthless engine designed to extract maximum value from both the guest and the worker. The casinos of Las Vegas have successfully pulled off a magic trick. They have convinced you to voluntarily give up a service you paid for, while simultaneously convincing you that you are doing it for a moral cause. In the process, they have broken the bodies of the women who build the foundation of this city. They have turned the hospitality industry into a factory line where the product is a clean room and the fuel is the physical exhaustion of the staff. So, MGM Caesars Wynn, we are asking publicly, release your injury data. Release the raw data on how many green choice credits are redeemed versus how many labor hours are cut. Show us the math. If it's really about the environment, prove it. And for you, the viewer, I have a challenge for your next trip. When you check in, decline the green choice. Tell the front desk you want daily service. And when you see your housekeeper in the hallway, don't just walk past. Look at the cart, look at the sweat, and leave a tip, because right now, that tip is the only part of the transaction that is actually going to the person doing the work. Have you noticed the decline in room cleanliness in Vegas? Have you worked in housekeeping and experienced the speed up? Drop your story in the comments below. We read them and we verify them. This is part 1 of our deep dive into the hidden economics of Sin City. You think the hotel rooms are a scam? Wait until you see what we found out about the Kobe beef in the restaurants. Subscribe, because next week we are going into the kitchen and you might want to skip lunch for that one.